Joseph was just a young boy with colorful dreams, but in a twist of jealousy, his own brothers betrayed him and sold him as a slave. From the dark pits of despair to the cold walls of an Egyptian prison, Joseph's life seemed shattered, yet God was silently weaving a plan far greater than anyone could see. How did a forgotten slave rise to become ruler of Egypt and face the very brothers who once wanted him dead? The answer will grip your heart and reveal how God turns pain into purpose. Please support us by subscribing to the channel. We create these inspiring stories every week to bring hope and faith to your life, and your subscription truly helps us reach more people who need these messages. Joseph was only 17 years old, young and full of dreams, with a heart that loved God. He lived with his father Jacob and his 11 brothers in the land of Canaan. But Joseph was special. He was Jacob's favorite son, born to him in his old age. To show his love, Jacob gave Joseph a beautiful coat of many colors that shined brightly under the sun with red, blue, gold, and green. Every time Joseph wore it, his brothers burned with jealousy. Joseph also had strange and wonderful dreams. One night, he dreamed that he and his brothers were binding sheaves of grain in the field. Suddenly, Joseph's sheaf stood upright while his brothers' sheaves gathered around and bowed down. When Joseph shared this dream, his brothers' hearts exploded with anger. "Do you think you're going to rule over us?" they sneered. Joseph had another dream where the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed down to him. Even Jacob was surprised when he heard this. "Will your mother and I and your brothers really bow down to you?" But while his brothers filled with hatred, Jacob pondered these dreams in his heart. The brothers couldn't stand Joseph anymore. Their jealousy turned to murderous rage. They despised his voice, his colorful coat, his very presence. They had no idea that Joseph's dreams weren't fantasies. They were divine prophecies of an impossible future. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers who had taken the flocks to Shechem. Joseph put on his colorful coat and set out, not knowing the danger ahead. When he couldn't find them in Shechem, a stranger directed him to Dothan. The brothers saw him coming from far away, that blazing coat like a beacon in the sunlight. "Here comes the dreamer," they mocked. "Let's kill him and throw him in a pit. We'll say a wild animal devoured him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams." But Reuben intervened. "Don't shed his blood. Throw him in this empty pit, but don't lay a hand on him." Secretly, Reuben planned to rescue Joseph later. When Joseph approached with a smile, calling, "Shalom, my brothers," they attacked him like wild animals. They ripped his precious coat from his body and dragged him to a deep, empty pit. "Please," Joseph cried, his voice breaking with terror. "I'm your brother. Why are you doing this?" Without mercy, they hurled him into the pit. Joseph hit the hard ground with a sickening thud, pain exploding through his body. As he lay bruised and bleeding, his brothers sat nearby eating their meal, laughing and talking as if nothing had happened. Then they saw Ishmaelite traders approaching with camels loaded with spices, heading to Egypt. Judah had a wicked idea. "What profit is there if we kill our brother? Let's sell him to these traders. After all, he is our flesh and blood." They pulled Joseph from the pit, his eyes red with tears. "Please, my brothers," he begged. "Don't do this. I love you." But love had died in their hearts. 20 pieces of silver, the lead trader offered. "Sold," said Judah without hesitation. They tied Joseph's hands with rough rope and put a slave collar around his neck. As the caravan moved toward Egypt, Joseph looked back one last time at his brothers, at everything he'd ever known and loved. He was 17, and his life as a free man was over. But God was watching every tear, hearing every cry, already weaving a plan so magnificent it would one day save nations. When Reuben returned to rescue Joseph and found the pit empty, he tore his clothes in anguish. But the brothers had already crafted their lie. They took Joseph's colorful coat, slaughtered a goat, and soaked the precious fabric in blood until it was unrecognizable. With trembling hands and guilty faces, they brought the bloody coat to Jacob. "We found this. Is this your son's coat?" Jacob's heart shattered. "It is my son's coat. A wild animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." His anguished cry echoed across Canaan as he tore his clothes and mourned with grief so deep it seemed endless. "I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave," he wept, refusing all comfort. But Joseph was alive, walking in chains toward Egypt, unaware that God's hand was upon him and his story was just beginning. If you're finding hope in Joseph's journey, please subscribe and share this video with someone who needs encouragement. Your support helps us bring these powerful biblical truths to people worldwide. The journey to Egypt was agony, Joseph's feet bleeding, wrists chafed from ropes, heart broken by betrayal. When he arrived, he was sold to Potiphar, Pharaoh's captain of the guard. Joseph started at the bottom, doing the hardest, most humiliating work. But he threw himself into every task with excellence. When asked to clean, he made everything sparkle. When told to carry water, he did it swiftly and carefully. While other servants complained, Joseph worked with joy. And Potiphar noticed. "There's something different about that Hebrew slave," he told his wife. "Everything he touches prospers. It's as if his God blesses all his work." Within months, Joseph was promoted. Within a year, he managed Potiphar's household. Within 2 years, he controlled everything Potiphar owned. Potiphar trusted Joseph so completely he didn't even check his possessions. He simply handed over the keys to everything. Under Joseph's leadership, Potiphar's wealth multiplied beyond measure. His crops yielded abundantly, his livestock thrived, his business deals prospered. Even neighbors commented on how blessed Potiphar's household had become. Joseph had risen from slave to steward, his gifts extraordinary, his integrity unquestionable. But just when life seemed restored, disaster struck again. Joseph was now 27, handsome, strong, and successful. But his success attracted dangerous attention from Potiphar's wife. She began pursuing him relentlessly. "Come to bed with me," she whispered when her husband was away. Joseph's response was immediate. "My master trusts me with everything except you, his wife. How could I do such wickedness and sin against God?" Day after day she tempted him, but Joseph's integrity was unshakable. His faithfulness to God was stronger than any temptation. Then came the trap. On a festival day when the house was empty, she grabbed Joseph's cloak and demanded he sin with her. But Joseph tore away and fled, leaving his cloak in her hands. Humiliated and enraged, she screamed for help. "This Hebrew slave tried to attack me. But when I screamed, he fled, leaving his cloak." When Potiphar returned, she repeated the lie with dramatic flair. Though Potiphar may have suspected the truth, he knew Joseph's character. He couldn't ignore his wife's public accusation. Without trial or defense, Joseph was thrown into the king's prison where Pharaoh's political enemies were kept. Once again, Joseph lost everything. Once again, the innocent suffered while the guilty went free. But God had not forgotten Joseph, not even in that dark dungeon. The king's prison was a place of despair, thick, stifling air, weeping walls, scurrying rats. But Joseph refused to give up or become bitter. He served with excellence, helping other prisoners while trusting his God. The prison keeper noticed Joseph's character and soon put him in charge of all prisoners and operations. Under Joseph's leadership, order replaced chaos, hope replaced despair. Even in darkness, God's blessing was evident through Joseph's life. One day, 2 high-ranking officials arrived, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and baker, arrested for offenses against the king. One morning, Joseph noticed both men looked troubled. "Why do you look so sad?" he asked with genuine concern. "We both had dreams, but there's no one to interpret them." "Don't interpretations belong to God?" Joseph replied. "Tell me your dreams." The cupbearer spoke first. "I saw a vine with 3 branches that budded, blossomed, and produced grapes. I squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup and gave it to him." God revealed the meaning to Joseph. "The 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will restore you to your position. But when you're free, remember me and mention me to Pharaoh. I was taken from the Hebrews and have done nothing to deserve this dungeon." The baker, encouraged, shared his dream. 3 baskets of bread were on my head, but birds ate from the top basket. Joseph's face grew serious. "The 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will execute you and hang you on a tree." 3 days later, on Pharaoh's birthday, everything happened exactly as Joseph predicted. The cupbearer was restored, the baker executed. Joseph's heart soared with hope. Surely the cupbearer would remember him now. But the cupbearer forgot Joseph completely. 2 more years passed in that dark prison, but God was preparing Joseph for something magnificent. 2 years later, Pharaoh had disturbing dreams. In the first, 7 fat, healthy cows emerged from the Nile, followed by 7 thin, sickly cows that devoured the fat ones but remained just as thin. In the second dream, 7 healthy heads of grain grew on one stalk, then 7 thin, scorched heads sprouted and swallowed the good ones. Pharaoh woke troubled and summoned all Egypt's magicians and wise men, but none could interpret the dreams. Then the cupbearer suddenly remembered Joseph. 2 years ago, a young Hebrew in prison interpreted dreams for me and the baker. Everything happened exactly as he said. Pharaoh immediately sent for Joseph. After 13 years of slavery and prison, Joseph was quickly brought from the dungeon, cleaned up, and brought before the most powerful man on earth. "I've heard you can interpret dreams," Pharaoh said. "I cannot," Joseph replied humbly, "but God will give Pharaoh the answer." After hearing both dreams, God revealed the meaning to Joseph. The dreams are one. God has shown Pharaoh what he's about to do. The 7 good cows and grain represent 7 years of abundance. The 7 thin ones represent 7 years of severe famine that will follow. God gave the dream twice because the matter is firmly decided. But Joseph didn't just interpret. He provided a solution. Let Pharaoh find a wise man to manage Egypt. Appoint commissioners to collect 1/5 of the harvest during the abundant years and store it for the famine years ahead. Pharaoh and his officials were amazed. "Can we find anyone like this man, in whom is the Spirit of God?" Pharaoh looked at Joseph. "Since God has revealed all this to you, there's no one so wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people will obey you. Only the throne will I keep above you." In one moment, everything changed. Pharaoh placed his signet ring on Joseph's finger, dressed him in fine linen, put a gold chain around his neck, and gave him a chariot. People bowed before Joseph as he rode through Egypt. At 30 years old, after 13 years of suffering, Joseph became the second most powerful man in the ancient world. The 7 years of abundance came exactly as predicted. Joseph organized the greatest storage operation in history, building massive granaries and collecting grain like sand of the sea. Egypt became the breadbasket of the ancient world. During those years, Joseph married Asenath and had 2 sons. He named the first Manasseh, meaning God has made me forget my troubles, and the second Ephraim, meaning God has made me fruitful in my suffering. But Joseph never truly forgot his father's house, wondering if Jacob still lived and thinking of his little brother Benjamin. When the 7 years of famine began, it spread throughout the known world. The Nile failed, skies turned to brass, crops withered everywhere. But Egypt was prepared. In Canaan, Jacob and his family faced starvation. Hearing there was grain in Egypt, Jacob sent 10 sons to buy food, keeping only Benjamin behind, afraid of losing another son. When the brothers arrived in Egypt and came before Joseph to buy grain, they bowed down before him, not recognizing the powerful Egyptian ruler as their brother. But Joseph knew them instantly. His heart pounded as he remembered his dreams, his brothers bowing before him, exactly as God had shown him years ago. Speaking through an interpreter, Joseph tested them harshly. "You are spies." "No, my lord," they pleaded. "We're honest men, 12 brothers from Canaan. One is no more, and the youngest remains with our father." Hearing about Benjamin, Joseph's heart nearly broke, but he continued testing them. He imprisoned Simeon and sent the others home with grain, secretly returning their money and demanding they bring Benjamin back. Jacob was devastated. "You want to take Benjamin too? Joseph is gone, Simeon is gone." But the famine worsened, and Jacob finally allowed Benjamin to return to Egypt. When Joseph saw Benjamin, his heart overflowed with emotion. He prepared a feast but still kept his identity hidden. Then came his final test. He secretly placed his silver cup in Benjamin's sack. After they left, his guards found the cup and brought them back. When Judah stepped forward, begging to become Joseph's slave instead of Benjamin, saying their father would die if the boy didn't return, Joseph saw his brothers had truly changed. The jealous, hateful men who sold him had become men willing to sacrifice for family. Joseph could contain himself no longer. Sending all Egyptians away, he wept so loudly the entire palace heard. "I am Joseph," he cried. "Is my father still alive?" His brothers stood frozen in terror, but Joseph called them close. "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Don't be distressed or angry with yourselves. God sent me ahead of you to preserve life. It wasn't you who sent me here, but God." Joseph embraced each brother, weeping tears of forgiveness. When Pharaoh heard, he joyfully sent wagons to bring Jacob's entire family to Egypt. The reunion between Joseph and Jacob was overwhelming. "Now I'm ready to die," Jacob wept, "since I've seen you're still alive." Joseph settled his family in Goshen, where they prospered and grew into a great nation. Joseph's story reveals profound truth about God's sovereignty. Every betrayal, every injustice, every moment of suffering was woven into God's plan to save not just Joseph's family, but entire nations. When Joseph told his brothers, "You intended harm, but God intended it for good," he revealed that God can transform our worst experiences into his greatest purposes. Joseph's journey from pit to palace teaches us that no matter how dark our circumstances, God is working behind the scenes. He sees the end from the beginning and is always writing a story of redemption. If this incredible story has touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and share this video with others who need encouragement. These stories of faith and redemption have power to change lives, and your support helps us reach people worldwide who desperately need hope. Remember, just like Joseph, your story isn't over. God is still writing, still working, still turning your pain into purpose. The God who lifted Joseph from the pit to the palace is working in your life today, and his plans for you are always good. Thank you for watching and God bless you.